everyone, welcome back to part 2nd of our science lesson, class 8, microorganisms, friend and foe. Microorganisms have an impact on our daily life. While some are useful, some others are harmful. Let us study about them in some detail.
Humans have been unknowingly using microorganisms for centuries. Some microorganisms are harmful to us as they cause many diseases and food spoilage. However, many microorganisms are used by humans for various purposes. Microbes are used in the food industry, pharmaceutical industry, leather and textile industry, in distilleries, in sewage treatment, etc. The Lactobacillus species of bacteria are used in the production of curd, yogurt and cheese. The lactobacillus converts lactose into lactic acid. Lactic acid imparts sour taste to the curd. Yeast, which is a unicellular fungus, is used in the making of bread and cakes. Microbes are very useful in the leather and textile industries. Bacteria belonging to Bacillus species remove the flesh from animal skin and make it stronger, more flexible and resistant to decay. Microorganisms are useful in the pharmaceutical industry. Microorganisms are used in the production of antibiotics which destroy or inhibit the growth of other microorganisms. For example, the fungi called Penicillium notatum produces the antibiotic penicillin. Microorganisms are also used to produce vaccines that provide immunity against several diseases like diphtheria, tuberculosis, etc. Humans have been using microorganisms in distilleries since years for the preparation of vinegar and alcohol. Microorganisms convert complex substances into simpler substances by the process of fermentation. Saccharomyces cerevisiae is a type of yeast that is used in producing alcohol by the breakdown of carbohydrates. Some bacteria help in the production of biogas from organic wastes. Such bacteria break down or decompose the waste in the absence of oxygen in the digester tank of a biogas plant. The bacterial degradation of complex organic matter, that is, cellulose, releases inflammable gases mainly consisting of methane. In sewage treatment plant, microorganisms like bacteria and many types of protozoa are used for removing contaminants from wastewater and making it suitable for disposal or reuse. Do you know that tiny microbes play a big role in cleaning up oil spills and natural gas leaks? During oil spills in oceans, microorganisms like bacteria are used to clear the oil by process of microbial degradation. Microbes in soil or in root nodules of leguminous plant like pea fix atmospheric nitrogen and make it available to the plant. These microbes serve as important biofertilizer. Farmers use these plants regularly in their fields to replenish soil nutrients and to reduce dependence on chemical fertilizers. Microbes are so adaptable that they have been used as tools for the production of various commercial products. They have a profound impact on every aspect of our life. Hence, scientists are constantly searching the potential benefits of microbes and their implementation on commercial scale.
Harmful microorganisms. Microorganisms are indeed helpful to life. However, there are some microbes which can cause diseases to humans, animals, or plants. Such disease-causing microorganisms are called pathogens. In this video, we will discuss about some of such microbes. Disease-causing microorganisms in humans. Pathogens may enter in a body through air, water, food, or by direct contact with infected person. The diseases that pass from infected body to healthy body and cause disease in healthy body are called communicable diseases. Airborne diseases. Common cold is a viral infection. During sneezing of a person suffering from common cold, fine droplets of moisture spread in air, each of which contain thousands of viruses. These viruses may be transferred to healthy body during breathing, causing disease in the body. So, the infected person must use handkerchief while sneezing, and the healthy person must be kept away from the infected person. Some other airborne diseases are tuberculosis, which is caused by bacteria, measles, chickenpox, polio, common cold are caused due to viruses. Spreading of airborne diseases can be prevented by keeping the patient in complete isolation and by keeping the things of patient away. Vaccination at suitable age is also helpful. Waterborne diseases. Cholera, typhoid, polio, hepatitis B are caused due to drinking of water containing pathogens of respective disease. Cholera and typhoid are bacterial infections, whereas hepatitis B is viral infection. To prevent such diseases, we should maintain personal hygiene and good sanitary habits. We should eat properly cooked food and drink boiled water. Vaccination also helps to prevent waterborne diseases. Diseases transmitted by carrier. The organisms such as houseflies, mosquitoes, which carries pathogens are called carriers. Pathogens present in garbage stick to the body of the housefly. When houseflies sit on uncovered food, pathogens get transferred to the food. Eating such food causes diseases, for example, cholera. So, it is advised to keep food covered and eat food that is covered. Similar to housefly, the female Anopheles mosquito carries parasite of malaria called Plasmodium. Female Aedes mosquito carries viruses of dengue. If we control the population of mosquitoes, we can control the spread of malaria and dengue. Basically, all mosquitoes breed in water. And so, we should not let water collect anywhere, like in tires, flower pots, in coolers, etc. We should keep our surrounding clean and dry. Use of mosquito nets and mosquito repellents, spraying insecticides also help to control malaria and dengue. Disease-causing microorganisms in animals. A bacteria causes dangerous disease anthrax in human and cattle. Foot and mouth disease of cattle is caused by a virus. Vaccination can prevent such diseases. Disease-causing microorganisms in plants. Diseases in plants result in less crop production. Some of these diseases are: citrus canker is caused by bacteria and transmitted through air. Rust of wheat is caused due to fungi and transmitted through air or seeds. Yellow vein mosaic of okra, that is bhindi, is caused due to virus and transmitted by insects.
What happens when we keep the leftover food on the table for the entire night? When we see the container in the morning, we find that it is shared by some new members. Yes, along with the food, we even find fungus growing in the container. So what do we do in such cases? Needless to say, we throw it away. This is because if we consume the food shared by fungus, then we may encounter a variety of health issues. This happens because the food has now turned into a poison for us. Wait a second, how can the delicious food of the previous night turn poisonous this morning? That too only with the mere presence of fungi? The fact that fungi grow over it is enough to explain this. Yes, when microbes of any type take over our food, they release certain substances in it. And these substances are quite toxic for us. And hence we say that the food has turned poisonous. This gets us to the concept of food poisoning. In the simplest words, we can define food poisoning as the ill effect on health caused by consumption of contaminated food. And how does the food get contaminated? It gets contaminated due to toxic secretions by certain bacteria, fungi, parasites, and any other type of pathogen present in it. Consumption of such contaminated food leads to various types of severe infections in our digestive system. So, is there something we can do to avoid poisoning of our food? Scientifically, spoiled food is a result of chemical reactions. Yes, the harmful microbes in our food give out certain secretions that bring out chemical changes in the food. These chemical changes render it unfit for consumption. So can we save our food from spoiling by interrupting these chemical reactions? Of course we can. And the only way to do this is by inhibiting the microbial growth or simply killing these microbes. Either ways, we do not allow the toxic secretions to enter our food. But how can this be achieved? Well, there are several ways of carrying out food preservation. A few methods have been carried out since ages, while some have been recently developed. Let's have a glance at the chemical methods of food preservation first. We always find our grandma adding lots of salt and oil to the pickle she makes every year. And the pickle, if you notice, tastes the same throughout the year. Have you ever wondered how this happens? Well, this is an ancient method of food preservation that we use. Adding commodities like salt, oil, and even vinegar arrest the growth of microbes in the food. Even if microbes attack our food, they get killed. Among all, salt is the most commonly and widely used. Not only pickles, but salt is also used for preservation of meat and fishes. Yes, salting of meat and fish, followed by drying them in the sun, can preserve them for many months together. Do you know any such commodity that we use daily which acts as a preservative? You must have observed that jams and jellies are added with wholesome amount of sugar. Yes, it is because sugar is also used as a preservative. Apart from making the jams and jellies sweet, sugar also inhibits microbial growth in it. Well, these were the commonly used commodities which were employed to preserve food in our homes or even on a small scale. But what about the food items manufactured or processed on a large scale? Some food items cannot be added with large amount of oil or salt. In such cases, a few chemicals come to our rescue. Yes. Now, apart from salting, oiling or adding sugar, we have certain chemicals that can be added to the food in order to preserve it. The most commonly used chemicals include sodium benzoate and sodium metabisulfite. These chemicals prevent the growth of microbes in our food. And what kinds of food items can be saved by these chemicals? We can add them to squashes, fruit juices, and even certain fruit jams. Now, these were the methods where the food items were added with some preservatives. But what about those consumables which cannot be added with any such preservatives? Wait a second. We can add preservatives to almost all food items. Then which consumables are we referring to? Well, have you ever thought of adding salt or oil to milk for preservation? How will you add sugar or vinegar to fruits and vegetables? These consumables cannot be preserved with any chemical treatment. For them, we need well-designed physical methods for preservation. We all love eating chocolates. But what if we are gifted cocoa beans instead? Can we really relish the cocoa beans just like chocolates? Of course not. Similarly, there are so many organisms which require a few important constituents, but they are not present in the utilizable form. One such example is that of nitrogen. Yes, atmospheric nitrogen is extremely important for the proper functioning of cells. The main reason for that is that proteins are made up of amino acids, which are in turn made up of nitrogen molecules. Also, many other compounds important for the cell are made up of nitrogen. So, are we saying that nitrogen is required by all organisms? Of course, yes. But we can't really breathe nitrogen from the air. So, this problem will be fixed by the plants for us. Yes, they will synthesize compounds having nitrogen. And when we consume plants, the nitrogen will enter our body. Simple, isn't it? Actually not. Problem of nitrogen consumption by animals got solved. But what about the problem of nitrogen consumption by plants? Nitrogen is present in abundance in the atmosphere. However, the divalent molecule has a very strong triple bond shared between its atoms, and it's very difficult to break this bond. It requires extremely high amounts of energy. One instance occurring naturally is the lightning process, which helps break the two atoms apart. But that doesn't always help. So the problem still exists. Even plants cannot take in nitrogen directly from the air. So now who will solve this problem? We don't need to worry. Plants also seek the help of some other organisms, the microorganisms. Yes, several bacteria and blue-green algae are a part of this activity. This important process is referred to as nitrogen fixation. What do we exactly mean by this? The term fixation refers to converting an element into its usable form. So, are we saying that these organisms convert nitrogen into utilizable forms? Absolutely. These organisms are referred to as nitrogen-fixing organisms. These nitrogen fixers present in soil convert the atmospheric nitrogen molecules into compounds like nitrates, nitrites, and ammonium. These compounds are then taken up by the roots of the plants. And then the plants uses these compounds to synthesize their own proteins. Consumption of these plants by animals and humans then gets the nitrogen into the animal kingdom. This is how the process of nitrogen fixation occurs. Let me quickly recap what we learned. Humans need nitrogen, but they can't take it directly from the atmosphere. Hence, they get it from the plants. But even plants can't take it directly from the atmosphere. This is where the nitrogen-fixing organisms come into the picture. They convert the atmospheric nitrogen into consumable compounds for the plants. And then animals consume the plants to get this nitrogen. But wait, if all the nitrogen in the atmosphere is gradually fixed by these microbes and used by plants and us, then it would deplete, right? What if it gets entirely depleted? What will happen then? How will organisms survive? Guess what? Nature, as always, holds a secret solution to this. And that secret is the nitrogen cycle. Yes, the nitrogen in the atmosphere is brought into the biological world where it is utilized. But it is also sent back to the atmosphere by some means. This process of cyclic flow of nitrogen from the atmosphere to the living world and back into the atmosphere is called as the nitrogen cycle. But how does this cycle actually flow? Let's have a look. As we know, the atmospheric nitrogen is fixed in two major ways. Firstly, by the rhizobium bacteria living in root nodules of the leguminous plants, and secondly, by nitrogen-fixing bacteria and blue-green algae in the soil. The first type involves fixing of nitrogen exclusively for legumes. The roots of these plants have nodules that are small bead-like structures. These nodules are the homes for a group of nitrogen-fixing bacteria called the rhizobium. The roots can thus directly get benefited due to the activity of these bacteria. But what about the non-leguminous plants? We don't need to worry. We have the second method. The nitrogen-fixing bacteria in the soil and the blue-green algae help in converting the atmospheric nitrogen into usable compounds. These compounds will be absorbed by the plants and utilized further. Now, when animals consume these plants, the nitrogen enters their body. Now, how will the nitrogen get back into the atmosphere from here? Definitely not by breathing. Let me give you a hint. Have you come across the process of decomposition? Yes, that's the answer to this question. When these organisms die, their bodies get buried in the soil. Now here the decomposers are all set into the action. The decomposers help to break down the various compounds containing nitrogen. So what will be the result? Yes, it results in releasing the nitrogen trapped inside the organism's body back into the soil. Amazing, isn't it? But wait, here's something more interesting. The soil also has another category of bacteria called the denitrifying bacteria. What could they be useful for? As the name says, they will help release the nitrogen molecules from these compounds present in soil into the atmosphere. Yes, these denitrifying bacteria sometimes convert the available nitrogen-containing compounds from the soil to release molecular nitrogen. That means they do not really wait for the decomposers to complete the process. Whenever these denitrifying bacteria encounter the nitrogen-containing compounds, they simply convert it and release molecular nitrogen. A keen look at the complete process gives us an understanding that the entire process flows in a cyclic manner. This is how several types of bacteria help in ecologically important processes like nitrogen fixation.